I just bought two Atlas GP40-2 locomotives, but these are only DC locomotives and not DCC locomotives, and the only layout I currently have is a DCC only layout. So today we're going to add DC operations to that small 1x5 foot switching layout using one of these panel mounted Apollo DC controllers and a simple toggle switch to allow you to select between DC and DCC operations. Let's try it. So these two Atlas GP40-2 locomotives, and they are GP40-2s, not SD40-2s, because I would never buy one of those. They are DCC ready locomotives and actually sound ready as well, I believe. And I'm going to have a video on upgrading both of these to DCC with sound, as long as having a keep alive in there coming up here in a later video. But for now, I do want to run them on a layout, and I could set up a loop of track, but I'd rather just upgrade this 1x5 foot N scale switching layout to have DC control as well. So a while back, Apollo Controllers did send me a couple of their DC panel mounted controllers, and these are really nice. You can see the front is very pretty looking. You have your power button, and then you simply have forward and reverse control with the throttle control here. And the back is a very nice, elegant looking circuit board. So everything is just really well done on these controllers. And I didn't think I was going to have a project for them for a while, but then I bought the locomotives and I was like, well, you know, I might as well add DC control to this small switching layout because that does give me a way to run some DC locomotives as well. Now, obviously, I already have a DCC system on there, so all I'm going to do is simply take one of these toggle switches and this controller, and I'll just be able to switch back and forth. So the operation here is pretty simple. All I'm going to do is take the output from the DC controller, put it to one side of this double pole, double throw toggle switch, take the output from the DCC system, attach it to the other side of a double pole, double throw switch, and then the terminals in the middle will go to the track. And so depending on which way you throw the switch, it'll either connect the DC or the DCC power output to the track itself. So all I really need to do is cut out two openings on the front of the 1x5 foot layout, one for the toggle switch, which does have a faceplate too to cover up the opening as well, so you don't have to be that precise. And for the controller, all I need to do is make sure I have enough opening space to make sure none of the components are being crushed up against the wood of the front of the layout. But overall, it should be a pretty straightforward and simple installation, so let's get started. So the first step in this process was to unscrew two of the bottom panels on the 1x5 foot layout so I could access all of the wiring. Once that was done, I marked out the space I needed to cut out for the Apollo DC controller, just using a scrap piece of cardboard material here to make a relatively square opening. The panel of the Apollo controller is going to be a lot larger than the opening you need to cut out, so you don't need to be that precise with the opening, just making sure it's large enough so you do have enough space for all of the electronic components to fit inside of it. To cut out the opening, I just drilled a hole in each of the four corners of the area I needed to cut out, and then used my jigsaw to cut out the full opening. Next, I did the same thing for my toggle switch. This toggle switch does come with a plastic panel that does cover up the opening itself. So again, you don't have to be that precise with the actual opening, just making sure it's large enough for the toggle switch to fit inside of. I test fit the toggle switch and the controller, and things look good there. I then went ahead and wired everything up, and I'll just kind of talk through how I did the wiring here in a minute. But finally, all I had to do was screw the panels on the bottom of the layout, and things were ready to operate. Okay, so let me explain the wiring that I did here. This is the back of the Apollo controller, and obviously I have two of them. And this is the back of the double pole, double throw switch here. So you can see how everything was set up and how the wiring is going to work. I have two power supplies now. The one on the bottom is for the DCC system, and the one up here is for the DC controller, which takes anything between 5 and 12 volts. The DC power goes into the controller here, and that goes into the plug on the back right here. The DCC power goes to the back of the DCC panel here. All I really had to do for this setup to work was to take the track output from the DC controller and run it to one side of the double pole, double throw switch here, and then I ran the DCC output wires to the other side of the double pole, double throw switch here, and then wires from the two middle terminals were run to the track power wires in the middle of this mess down here. And so when I flip the toggle switch, it will either send the DCC power to the track, or when in this direction, the DC power will be sent to the track. So you can have both of these systems on, but which one sends power to the track is determined by this toggle switch. And so don't be scared by this rat's nest of wires here. It's a pretty simple process. I just have all these wires because I have 8 sets of feeder wires going to the track, and then I have all the wires going to each of the turnouts for remote operation. But in terms of the double DC and DCC controls, it's a very straightforward process. So anyway, I'll get the bottom panels put back on here, and then we will be ready to operate. Okay, I have the power supply hooked up again. Then we will turn the power on, and once the red light stops flashing, we are ready to operate. Now I hooked up the power so that when I turn the throttle knob to the left, the train goes to the left, and when I turn the knob to the right, the train goes to the right. If the train direction is opposite of what you want with this controller, just flip the 2 wires on the terminals on the back of the controller. I will also note that the controller has a click stop at the center off position, so you know when you are at that position and you aren't guessing where the off position is, which is quite obvious. You can smoothly decrease the speed in one direction, reach the click stop, and then smoothly increase the speed in the other direction. You can see that this controller provides very smooth control, and that these Atlas GP40-2s are also very smooth operators as well. If you do want to see more on these Atlas GP40-2s, I will have a full video on them coming up probably in a few weeks, and I'll look at the DCC ready versions that I have here, and then I'll add DCC decoders and keep alives to them, and we'll test them out in that configuration as well. But you can see that these locomotives are very smooth runners on DC power alone, and if you do have a DC layout, these might be great options for you to consider. Anyway, these Apollo controllers are really nice options for DC layout control, and so if you are looking for a panel mounted option, this does give you very smooth and fine DC speed control. Anyway, that's all for now, and thanks for watching. Bye.